Let's talk about Ricciardo being out in Q1.
Sure.
P18. At this point, and we'll go into McLaren in more detail later, but at this point I was thinking, COVID might have hit him pretty hard. Lewis was saying that it was a big, impact on him. And he'd obviously not been in the car since Barcelona. So I was thinking, well, it's not great, but we saw Ricciardo having some poor qualifyings even in the midst of last season. And I don't know, maybe there's still some time to be spent here. I was trying to stay as positive as possible because it was pretty deflating. It was like, oh, here we go again with qualifying and Daniel Ricciardo. So at that point, I have to say I was trying my best to stay positive, even though it was not great news for McLaren when it came to qualifying. Also interesting that Hülkenberg beat Stroll.
Yeah.
Both Aston Martins were also out in Q1, but Hülkenberg did very well to beat Stroll there, and they're very impressive. So then I kind of had to think differently about Ricciardo because I thought, well, Hülkenberg hasn't even done anything in these cars, and he's managed to do pretty well, all things considered. One thing I wanted to ask you about qualifying, Shane, is now we have no requirement for the teams to use their Q2 tyre to start the race. For the top 10, that is. So everyone gets to choose what tyre they want to start the race on. What do you think about that change?
I'm on the fence, like I am with most things, because I think it's great that there's a free set of tyre choice, because that makes qualifying all the more interesting. It means every team can push as hard as they want in Q2 to get through to Q3 without being penalised that you have to start the race on that used set of tyres. However, what was quite nice about the traditional rule, as in like the 2021 rule, was that you got the top 10, but then from 11th to the back of the grid, they were all on fresh set of tyres, because it was always like they had a second chance to try and overtake the front runners, because the front runners were on slightly used tyres. So it created a little bit of racing, a little bit of drama, especially if you're sat in P11 and P12 and you only missed out by, Q3 by a tenth or two. You're on a brand new set of tyres now, whereas the guy who's qualified in P10 is on a used set of tyres. So maybe there's some strategy to had during the race. So I think, I don't know, it works both ways, doesn't it? I think for the race itself, I mean, what we saw, it didn't really have much of an impact, and we had the bizarre strategies going on. I think it would take a couple more races for me to fully see what the impact is on the sport, though. But I don't mind. I mean, the racing was good, which is all we asked for.
Yeah, I think that I would have to see some data, like you say, on what the difference actually is between allowing people to choose and forcing them to start on their Q2 tyre in the top 10. Be interesting to see if there is much of a difference when it comes to the race, because, those medium tyres could last longer. It could put them into a different position once pit strategy comes into play. So, yeah. But I also really like the idea of, in every qualifying session, the drivers being able to push to the max and get the absolute full potential out of the car, and to have that really make the order stack up on that merit. So, yeah, requires a few more races to be certain. But I quite like the change. It's a change that I think is interesting and not too impactful.
Yeah, and that's quite nice.
I don't necessarily mind big changes. I don't want to sound like I'm totally against them messing with the format, but I think there is a distinction between trying to make progress and needlessly tinkering with things. And yeah, this is sort of a happy medium change, maybe. Or see what I did there? Instead of happy soft change. Anything else you want to talk about when it comes to qualifying, Shane?
Well, I was very impressed with Haas and Alfa Romeo. They really stepped up from last year. K-Mag managed to finish P7, which was great. I don't think he got his final run in either. I think he had like a hydraulic issue after his first run in Q3, which put him like P6, and then he dropped to P7, not being able to get his final run in, which I think is absolutely fantastic for Haas. That was incredible. I was quite reserved. I was trying to make excuses a lot through qualifying because of the whole McLaren situation. So very much like you, I saw Ricciardo in 18th and I thought, well, he's had COVID. He had issues in FP2, which then bled into FP3. So maybe he's not had much time in the car, which is why his performance wasn't ideal. And then I saw Haas in Q3 and I thought, this is amazing, but I'm going to hold back celebrating until the race, because usually if we see a car outperform itself, like we have seen Russell do in the past with a Williams, they only get eaten up then in the race. So I was very happy for Haas, and I was thinking, hopefully this success maintains and continues and they don't just fall backwards during the race after an extraordinary qualifying session, which I'm glad to see wasn't the case. I also thought it was quite hilarious that Bottas split the Mercedes drivers and started alongside Lewis Hamilton for, I don't know, the 60th time in his career.
Well, he split them by some margin because Russell was P9.
Absolutely. I mean, Russell had a howler of a qualifying session on his last run. He went basically straight on at the first corner and then lost the second there. So who knows what his time would be representatively. But you've got to do it on the final lap. And this is what you've got to get used to in a top tier car or somewhere near the top tier car. You've got to be able to put it together on the last lap to qualify high. But qualifying was really exciting. It was a session I was really looking forward to this weekend because even through practice, I've sat down watching it with my other half, Hannah, and she was like, so what do you think? Because we've got this little fantasy F1 league between us. Who do you think we should put in my team? And I was like, nobody knows. I was like, nobody's showing any kind of pace in practice. I was like, wait until Q1. By then it's too late on the league game. But I was like, we won't see anyone's pace until at least Q1 or Q2. And then the gloves are off on Q3. And it was just amazing to see this pecking order. Just amazing to see this qualifying result. I mean, look at that grid. And you think, yes, this could be a great year.